So you are Western doctor. What is the difference between traditional Amazonian medicine and your Western medical training?
Oh, so there's a lot I could say on the subject. I think that it's important to acknowledge Western medicine. It's really really good. The scientific process is a good process when it's done right. When you can constantly think if something is correct and question it, and then come to a correct conclusion. I think that's a really good way of understanding the world around us, and it's got us so far as well, and especially in medical fields like the emergency medicine and dealing with people with really really acute medical problems who are going to die, or even other problems as well, like broken bones and other issues. It's really useful, and it definitely has its uses. But I think what I see what I see all the time is that a lot of modern medicine, not all of it, is like a patchwork process. Like you're you're treating the symptoms, not the cause. A lot of the time, you're kind of using one organ or plugging one problem to compensate for another problem, and you're not really getting to the root cause of things. You can get to the root cause of things sometimes, but a lot of the time you're treating the symptoms and not the disease itself. For example, when you're using immunosuppressants, you're suppressing the immune system. You're not necessarily asking why the immune system is suppressed in some cases. And then with a lot of things like depression or anxiety, you're treating depression and anxiety like it's purely a chemical imbalance in the mind. There's a lot of different models of how these things work, but like the mainstay of treatment is either talking therapies or like medication, which is increasing serotonin or noradrenaline levels in the brain, or it's used to sedate people, and that's how can we see something that is clearly affecting our emotions, our mood, our energy as purely a chemical thing, when humans are humans are heart, humans are soul, humans have emotional layers and emotional bodies. There's lots of schools of mysticism which talks about the different layers of the human psyche, and even now we're looking at quantum biology and how the quantum world interacts with our physical reality, and how we have a quantum aspect to ourselves as well. And if we're looking at using medication to treat deep psychic illnesses like depression and anxiety, then we're purely operating on a physical plane, and we're not even thinking about the soul or the heart and all of these things. And a lot of our pains are not even due to our own lives. They can be passed down ancestrally. There's a whole field in epigenetics where we're looking at how our environment changes our genetics, and then we pass this down to our children, and that continues. And what about trauma that we store subconsciously when we're still in our mother's wombs, or like when we're really small? How do we unpick that with just looking at the problem and using cognitive behavioral therapies and trying to solve it by like digging more into the problem and making the wound bigger? It's putting more attention on the problem itself rather than going directly to the root. And sometimes you can't talk about it. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes there's no like procedure to get to those problems because they're buried so deep. And in something that's beautiful, many things that are beautiful in traditional medicine, especially in Amazonian traditional medicine, is that when you take a pill, you're taking a very concentrated form. This is not a blanket statement for everything, but you're taking a very concentrated form of one chemical and you're ingesting it and it's working on one specific place. Sometimes those chemicals are derived from plants themselves and we've just isolated them because we know they have a specific action. But the thing with plants and plant medicines is that there can be so many different interacting compounds in one plant that can balance out the side effects of these like concentrated one chemical pills that we're completely ignoring. And sometimes we don't particularly know how all these compounds interact with that one active ingredient that we take. So sometimes they might reduce the side effects of certain things, and that is a major problem in Western medicine, is that we suffer from a lot of side effects from the medications we take. And it goes back to the same point I was taking. It's like treating it like patchwork. You're plugging one organ to compensate for another one. Whereas if you're able to work with plants more and understand them more, and you can take a more holistic approach, and it can balance out these negative effects from just taking one very concentrated form of a compound. And if we want to go into the spiritual side of things, which is important because we always ignore the spiritual side. And how can we ignore the spiritual side of things? Because the world is spiritual, you're spiritual, you have a soul, you have emotions, you know it in your heart. Then if you look at ayahuasca, how did we find a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, which is what prevents the active
DMT.
ingredient of DMT, yeah, working in the, well, not being absorbed in the gut. We found the Amazonian traditional people, Shipibo people, found the one plant in the forest that is an inhibitor of that enzyme in the stomach, which actually allows ayahuasca to work. And how did they know that? How did they know that there was that small chemical? They didn't have a microscope, electron microscope, to see what the chemicals were. They say they were told this by the plants, and that's something I really believe in, and that's something that I have experience in. That you're told things by the plants, that information that you otherwise wouldn't have access to, and that only comes from working with plants, and that only comes from being able to hear the message. And it's in the same way, in you take any plant and it has a message to tell, and it's not just the chemicals in the plant that are healing you, it's also the spirit of the plants. And these plants are all very powerful entities, and they have a lot to tell, and they have a lot of healing power to give as well. And we have a lot to learn as well. And to say that we know everything about a plant by knowing its chemical structure, I think is not a very smart thing. It's not a very smart place to start from. And so starting from a place of, I don't know everything, and I don't think that science knows everything, which is true, science doesn't know everything, is a really good place to start. And maybe the people who have been working with these things for so many thousands of years, millennia, have a lot of wisdom that they can share, that we just need to hear, and has the capacity to heal us in a multidimensional level, in a quantum level, because the world is quantum, the universe is quantum. And when we're connecting with these plants, and we are we're being worked on in a quantum level, and that's something that you can't always conceptualize or or write down, or formulate into like a clear, this is the way it works. We don't know the way it works yet. We don't know so much about quantum physics, so how can we know so much about the quantum biology of a human being and the world around us?
How are the Shipibo maestras?
Oh, they're amazing. they I've It's rare, it's very rare that you meet people who are so powerful yet so humble. And there's no gatekeeping of information. They want to share they want to share their healing. They just want you to get better, and there's no ulterior agenda with them. They are just trying to benefit everyone and trying to benefit the universe and trying to do the work of the plants. And there's just a purity with them. There's no lying in their eyes. There's no lying in their being. There's no conditioning in them. There, there is always conditioning in everyone, but there is very little conditioning in them compared to us. And it's really an honor to be around them because their energy rubs off on you, their humbleness rubs off on you, the way they see the world and the way they view the world and the beauty of them rubs off on you. And they have so much wisdom to share with the heart, with the soul, with their knowledge of treating different people. It's like a vast library and expanse, and they've been their culture has been road mapping these territories for so long. It's really beautiful to be around them, and it's an honor, honestly. Yeah.